Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Awesome. We'll get started here in just a minute. I think Gail's rounding up a few more folks. Thank y'all for being here on time. How many of y'all got any sleep? Some sleep? Good. Some-ish? Yeah, some? Okay. Well, we got a full day today. Y'all been very good so far. I think y'all are going to enjoy a lot of the sessions that we have today. The first of which is by Dr. Corliss Outley, who is a great collaborator. Yes. She's a great collaborator with the Texas Youth Action Network. And before we get started, a few things. Y'all don't have to wear your shirts today, the blue shirts. That was just for yesterday to make sure we can keep count of y'all at Grand Station. But do remember to always wear your name tags. So we can always keep account of where y'all are at. We do have some refreshment breaks scheduled during the day, as well as a Mexican fiesta for lunch, as well as a banquet later in the day before the dance. There's coffee, water, lemonade, everything over there. And so let's go ahead and get started. The first session will be bringing youth to the decision-making table by Dr. Outley, and I have Sophia Bradley here with our Youth Advisory Board to introduce Dr. Outley.
Dr. Corliss Outley is an associate professor at Texas A&M University who researches positive youth development outcomes during out-of-school hours. Dr. Outley believes it's only from working side by side with youth that we learn about their assets.
All right, good morning. Good morning. Okay, you guys are sleepy, aren't you? Okay, let's do some truth time. How many of you are sleepy? All right, see, I like that. So when I start talking and I don't get as much feedback as I usually do, I know why. In other words, it's you and not me, right? All right, so this morning we're going to talk about how to support youth at the decision-making table. As you heard, my name is Corliss Outley. One of the things that you'll see me do in a few minutes is that I usually do not stand at a podium. So I will be moving around, just so you guys know. I may even come tap you on the shoulder because you're falling asleep on me, but it's okay. I'm one of those speakers that I will scare you and have everybody take pictures of you. I will put markers on your face. I'm just that person. You just got to get used to it. The other thing is I love feedback. So we will be very interactive. We will try our best to keep you going and wake you up this morning because I'm not going to lie. I'm a little sleepy too. And not only am I sleepy, I had to talk about the chair, Dr. Gabrielle, because I'm not a morning person, y'all. And she scheduled me for 8:30. I still try to be in my bed at 8:30. I don't like getting up. Y'all can tell I don't like getting up this early. But let's talk. And so to start off, I want you to talk at your tables. You need to choose one of the 3 questions. Who is your favorite superhero and why? If you were an animal, which animal would you be and why? And if you were a wizard, what would be your superpower and why? Let's take 5 minutes and have that discussion at your table. Nope. Don't worry about it. It's okay. One and a half minutes. It's okay. When he comes back. I should have asked before I started. All right. So I need a table to, y'all know what I'm gonna do. I need a table to report out. So when I say report out, that means tell me what you guys discussed. What table wants to tell me what you discussed? Go for it. So he said he wanted to be an ostrich. Why? Ostriches are fast. Okay. Who else at the table? What did you guys decide? Yes. A chimpanzee, why? He said he wanted to be a chimpanzee because they're pretty smart and they can throw their poop. Good answer, good answer. Don't have to go to the toilet. I like that in you. Last one. He said a lion because they're strong. So why do you guys think we started off with a exercise like this? For what reason? Icebreaker, what else? To get to know each other, to get to know the people around you. Something as simple as asking who your favorite superhero. Did you guys know before you started today? Did you know you have friends at the table that wanted to be an animal? And that some of those animals are sea turtles and a hawk because they kind of float? He wanted to be a hawk because they kind of float in the air and they're graceful. And then we had someone who wanted to be a sea turtle because they're in the water. And so I said, did you know sea turtles actually live very long lives? So all of this is about trying to get to know each other. So if you're trying to get to know each other, that means it becomes important. It begins to develop trust just by understanding who is at the table, understanding if you're an adult, what youth are capable of and what they think, as well as youth, you get to understand that that lady that you always talk to, who's always trying to tell you what to do, that she may actually be interested in the DC Comics or Marvel Comics, and you never had a clue. So this is all about building trust, and the only way to build trust is what you have to do to be able to share power at the decision-making table. So what are we going to do today? I'm going to talk a little bit today on how to resist the urge to overrule decisions made by youth from our adults in the room. We're going to try to talk about opportunities to share. Sorry, you guys, that's me. To share decision-making power. So we need to talk about power. And then how do you create an environment that's centered around decision-making, that's centered around shared power? And how do you do it intentionally? So you guys up and ready? They're like, we got this. So first, let's talk about youth voice. You guys, I'm sure, have had discussions yesterday about what is youth development, how to make teams and have people come together. You've also talked about the importance of youth empowerment and youth voice. So one of the big things that's important is when we talk about youth voice is to really understand what it is. But first, youth-adult partnerships. All of you are here to talk about youth-adult partnerships, right? How many of you already have youth-adult partnership programs in place? How many of you are starting out totally new and you have no clue what you're doing? It's okay, be honest. All right, so part of what we're going to do over the next few days is actually encourage you and give you information on how to start. But one thing that you need to understand is that when you're thinking about positive youth development, it's about engagement. It's about how you as an adult interact with youth and how we make sure that youth are totally engaged within your program, within your organization. So if we think about this pyramid, usually most programs are at the level of youth development. We're just providing services. This is where most of the youth in the room, they go to a program, they hang out, they do a little bit, They may play chess, we may play soccer, maybe I'm doing some art, and then you guys kind of go home. Where do you guys usually do that at? What kind of programs after school are you involved in where you just kind of go and you just hang out? YMCA, what else? Boys and Girls Club, what else? How about your local parks and rec, where you're just hanging out? But you may have some programs you're involved where they're trying to build leadership. So that's higher up on that actual pyramid. This may be a program in your church where you actually get to be an officer. This may be a program after school like the Boy Scouts and you're an Eagle Scout where they're building leadership. All of those programs are different than youth-adult partnerships. Youth-adult partnerships are at the top of that pyramid where there is full community decision-making between youth and adults. To get to that point, it's a fundamental shift in all our minds. It's all about how individuals can work together. So it becomes a group of youth and adults that work together on important issues, whatever that issue may be in your community. All the participants have options, that they have the opportunity to engage in the planning, decision-making, and action, all based on their interests and skills, but also it's about mutual learning and respect among youth and adults. So I want you guys to see that last line, mutual learning and respect. So this isn't about youth telling adults what to do. And this is not about youth or adults telling youth what to do. It's about mutual learning and respect between the two individual groups. A regular youth program is a one-way commitment. I am the local YMCA and I am committed to youth, and you just come on in. Do what you have to do and we leave you alone. Youth-adult partnerships is a two-way commitment. It is about adults helping youth establish programs, but also the youth themselves talking to the adults about what their needs are and getting adults to understand who youth are within their community. When you do it this way, everybody benefits. So you guys are thinking about what your youth-adult partnership should look like. There are so many options. It could be everything from a group that does program planning and implementation, to organizing, to doing communication and media. You can have a cable-run station on your local cable TV station, and it's run by youth for youth, with adults that are part of it. You can have service and philanthropy. Maybe it's an organization like Books in a Blanket, where you have young people who are interested in reading, and they collect books, and then they go and send those books out to the local elementary school. But the youth are in charge, and the adults are there to support. It could be about research and evaluation. Maybe you have to do a community needs assessment, and you have to figure out what are the needs of the youth in the community. So the youth are actually the researchers. You also can do it in governance and policy making. You could have a program like at Bryan High School looking at tobacco prevention. And the youth themselves are the ones who are advocates for it. So that is an example of what you had yesterday. All of these things are important, and you can have your youth-adult partnership look any way that you want it to look. Do not get stuck by thinking it has to be one certain way. No matter what you think about, all of it is based on Hart's ladder, and ignore that G that's just kind of hanging out there. Don't talk about me later. Everybody know that G's supposed to be up there with understanding, right? Okay, don't talk about me. So when we think about Hart's ladder, we couldn't find the clicker, y'all, so you're gonna have to bear with me. And some people in this room know how I talk. Thank you. They already know who I am. So you can ask them questions later. But when we think about Hart's ladder, A lot of times we want participation at the highest rung of this ladder, at 7 or 8. You do not want it at below the line. And when we talk about participation, we're talking about youth engagement. Remember I said you want that two-way commitment. When it's below the bottom 3 rungs, we're talking about tokenism, we're talking about manipulation, and we're talking about decoration. So what does that mean? We have some people in this room right now. I'm gonna talk about the adults now, and you guys will get used to this because I'll talk about the kids later. I'm gonna talk about the adults now. You guys sit around in your offices at your job and you're like, I think we need to do something with the youth. I want the youth to come on. And so what do you guys usually do? When you decide you want to work with some kids, what happens? Where do you get the kids from? Schools, where else? Church, where else? Libraries. Y'all just be honest. You know you call up some of your friends who got kids, or you get your own kids and say, you about to show up tomorrow. There's a meeting this week. I need some people to show up. Everybody's sitting in here trying to be all, yes, I go to the school and recruit. You know you don't. You don't always go to the school and recruit. We know we use our resources, which means, oh, it's that kid that's next door. I'm gonna go pick them up. So when we do that, I need you to understand that that can be a form of manipulation or coercion. Why is that a form of manipulation? Why y'all think? You force them. So now I'm gonna talk to the youth. How many times have you guys had to show up at some event or on some committee because somebody made you? Say that again. What'd you say? Say it again.
Too many times to count.
I want you to hear this. What'd you say?
Too many times to count.
What? Another youth? What y'all say? Who else has had to do it?
Too many.
Too many. How many times? How many times have you guys had to do this? About 3. He said 300. Okay, I'm trying to get them on your side. You can't be giving me these wild numbers. A lot. So I want you to think about this. Even sometimes in our recruiting, we manipulate. And there are times in our recruiting where we use them as decoration. Y'all like, oh, do we really? What do you think I mean by decoration? We show them off. Y'all know, as adults, we had this event, our supervisors come in, maybe the supervisor or the supervisor come in. So we show the kids up, okay, make sure you dress nice. Okay, now take that hat off. You can't have that hat on. Oh, somebody got a shirt. I need a shirt for him real quick. Y'all decorate them. And then you sit them up there and they say, look, we have youth, look. We got youth. Oh, yes. They love this program. They don't even know what program they're sitting there for. We love this program. It's benefited them so much. So we use them as decoration. And then finally, sometimes we use them as tokens. We get that one youth to show up. We use them over and over again, but they have no real power. That's the bottom of the rung. Those are the 3 bottom rungs. Those are the things that I'm going to tell you right now. Stop it. Stop it. Because you're sitting here in this room with youth who have more or less told you they get done like this all the time. And even though you're hearing it from the youth right now, they're not even your youth. I ain't gonna lie, some youth that are sitting right next to the adults told them the same thing. So y'all can't see everybody, but I could see everybody and they were like, I'm here because she made me be here. I didn't even want to get on the bus. They made me get up this morning. I wanted to sleep in. This the last week I got before school started, and I got to be here. So we make them do these things. And if you're hearing their voices, you understand this isn't what they want. What you ultimately want to do is be at the top of that ladder where there is shared power and decision-making, where young people can lead and initiate action, or young people and adults share in their decision-making. To actually have full participation is change. And everybody in this room is scared of change. How many of you like change? See, I got like 5 people in this whole room that like change, maybe close to 10. Most of us as human beings are scared of change, but change is important. Through change, we can encourage and assist young people to use their skills. Youth participants can directly participate in organizational management, and they can mobilize other youth to actually make change in their community, as well as influence the youth of public assets. So all of this is important. It becomes even more important when we think about situations where adults dominate decision-making, which is the majority of young people's lives. They are told when to get up. They are told when to go to sleep. They are told when to eat. They are told what they need to do. And they get very few choices. How many of you and the youth in this room feel like you get choices? You get choices. Sometimes. Look, they're going, maybe. What kind of choices do you guys get to choose or make decisions on? Say it again? Not many. What do you get choices on? Typically clothes. But do you really? Because there's a thing called school clothes policies. Can you really wear what you want to wear? I'm just saying, let's be honest. What do you guys get to decide? So you get to choose clothes? Do you get to choose your food? Or does your mama sit there, or your dad, or your guardian sit there and say, I don't care what, this is what I cooked, this is what you're going to eat? Everybody's going, yeah, we had pizza 3 days in a row because my mother didn't want to cook. No. So when you think about it from the youth perspective, they don't get a lot of chance to make decisions. And so authentic youth engagement means that in youth-adult partnerships is the one area where they have some control. And it all boils down to youth voice. So what's youth voice? Anybody know what youth voice is? Yes. I like you. Youth having a say in things. That is correct. Youth voice is all about increasing the quantity and quality of opportunities for young people to serve as decision makers. What does that mean? They have a voice. They have an ability to say what they want. They have ability to help make decisions. And in turn, it establishes a culture where youth development becomes important and a part of the organization when they actually can have a say. Everybody knows this person, Usher. He had a quote that I love. The more youth begin to recognize that they have a voice, the more change is possible. Do you guys realize you have a voice? Have you guys tried to use your voice in schools? Do you get shot down? Sometimes. I like him. He's like, a lot. 300. It's just a lot. One of the main reasons you get shot down, and this is where I'm now talking to the adults, is a thing called adultism. How many of the adults know what adultism is? I got 2, 3, 4. All right. So adultism. It refers to the behaviors and attitudes based on the assumption that adults are better than young people, and they are entitled to act upon young people without their agreement. So I'm going to give it to you a better way. Adultism is when adults believe they always right. And they can say what they want to say and do to you what they want to do to you just because you're a youth. Adults, do you agree with this? Be honest. How many adults feel like we are smarter and I can't tell them what to do? They just little. I'm going to talk about them 3 that raised their hand in a few minutes. This level of adultism, we socialize our kids in this adultism. What do I mean by that? That means you can find adultism in education. There are youth right here that know that their teachers were wrong in class. They were wrong, and they can't say anything. Why? Because they are taught that adults are always right and that they are better than young people. We see it in the workplace. We see it in even youth programs. It also influences things like language that we use in today's society. It can influence laws. It can influence cultures and systems. So when does a youth, for example, become an adult? At what age? 18. What happens? What can you do at the age of 18 that makes you think you're an adult? You can vote. Really? What else? You can move out. What else happens at 18? You can do whatever you want? You can be charged as an adult in the juvenile system. What else? You can buy a gun. What else? Hold on. What'd you say? So think about this. At 16 in the state of Texas, you can do what? You can drive, but you're still not adult. So we can give young people a 1 to 2 ton automobile to drive at 16, but they're not an adult. And then they can turn around at 18 and they can legally vote. They can join the army. But what's the one thing they still can't do? They still can't drink. That's not till what age? 21. So I want you to think about this, youth. You can join the army. You can vote. You can go off to war, kill somebody, but you can't have a drink afterwards. Now I need the adults to think about this. What is that telling our youth? What is that telling our youth about when they are truly an adult? Y'all are like, oh God, that blew my mind. I didn't think about it that way. I'm looking at the adults' faces and they're like, really? So at 21, they still can't drink. At 18, they can go to war. At 16, they can drive. But we as adults will still say we're better than them. I want you guys to think about that. Y'all are looking at me like, don't be messing up our system. Because it is. It's a culture. It's a system. And so we're about to fight. I need all the adults to stand up in the room because it is time to rumble. All adults. Oh, yes, we're about to fight. I need all the adults to go to my left, your right, and I need someone to come up to the front, and you guys get to have this particular Post-it note. I need all of my youth to stand up. I need you guys to come to this side. Y'all got to get up. If I got to stand up, y'all got to stand up. Get up. I need one person to scribe from each of the groups. Oh, thank you, baby. One person to scribe from each of the groups. I want the adults. I want you to tell me, how do you see youth today? Tell me everything that you can think about of how you see youth today. And don't be trying to sit there and be positive. Tell me everything you can think. So yell it out to her, and then we're going to fight. Youth, I need you to think about, how do adults see you today? How do you guys see adults? Sorry, I said that wrong. How do you guys see adults today? Tell me everything you think about adults. Tell me everything. He like lazy, disorganized.
On here.
It's on the desktop. Thank you. I like you. He said, awesome. Be truthful.
Somebody from the back.
Snowflakes. Woke. You don't have to write neatly.
You missed awesome.
Awesome.
You should get interested in service. They're very interested.
Never want to grow up.
No, they even stuck in Peter Pan here.
Peter Pan mode. Peter Pan mode. What else?
Interested in service.
Service.
Service oriented.
What else? Naive. Disconnected. I'm gonna go help the kids because see y'all mean.
I didn't want to yell it out, but kids, we know kids shouldn't drink until they're 25 because of the brain.
Honestly, I didn't even want to go there with them because they were already in the audience going, they can't kill and then can't get a drink. I was like, y'all like wine every day.
Leaders. Leaders. Very good. Innovators. Love that.
Technically savvy.
Innovators.
Our laws are set up to try to kids. And I say these things, obviously, they're the ones who can change the laws. Because why should I wait till 18? But then you have to be able to do things.
They're technically savvy.
But yes, I think about your comments.
Child,
Ooh, what else y'all got over here? What y'all doing over here? Y'all better rip them. Y'all tear them up. Don't be trying to be nice. You know the names they've called you behind your back.
We're annoying. Dumb ass.
You know what they
Put it down. Put it down. Wait, put annoying.
How are them they mean? They annoying. What else they do? Always trying to manipulate you. You go in here, oh, you can your bedroom, I'll give you $25.
My phone's up.
And then they don't even, they don't follow through on their
Well, no, they don't. They don't promise that. We're Hispanic. They never. I like a clean bed. Money was never my job.
They make promises and don't keep them.
That's very true. I was promised to go to Disney World. My grandma still had to show back.
You see what I'm saying? No, they just mean. They're mean. Adults are mean. I heard over here, all youth are just lazy. That's what I heard over here.
Oh no, drag. This ain't positive. Naive and smart.
I heard y'all are strict over here. All you adults.
They don't listen.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Like my mom used to like anybody mentally ill.
Did y'all say put mentally ill? All right, 1 minute, 1 minute.
My mom gives me a lot of freedom. They're writing. Y'all got dice.
1 minute. I like my PowerPoints all on the back of him. Y'all can't think of nothing else?
No. Well, we all have Megan. My mom's. My mom. Yeah. When I do something bad. I'm a bad child. I always was. I was really made that. Well, so are you. I'm a bad child.
Say, we got to balance you out.
But like, I won't do it. My mom wishes I was a bad child. She told me that if asked my mom if I ever wanted to sneak out of a party. She said, no,
Okay.
we wouldn't have to.
All right, let's give each other a big round of applause and go back to our tables. Let's see how you guys really think about each other. I know. Let's see how you guys really think about each other. We're going to start with the youth.
I don't think that's the best idea.
Oh, yes.
I think that's a great idea.
All right, let's start with the youth. How do you see today's adults? They believe that today's adults are snowflakes. It's not that they're power hungry, egotistical, controlling, hypocritical, disrespectful. Dang, y'all was in there. Condescending, closed-minded, rude, old-fashioned. Y'all can be annoying. They said that about y'all. And the bad part is, that's kind of funny, every single youth here is here because of a chaperone, and that tells you what they think about y'all. I'm just saying, this is going to be a long ride home. They always tired, like they done something. Y'all know y'all don't really work. Inconsiderate. Y'all are heartless. All the adults in this room. The other thing is, y'all don't never follow through on your promises. Ooh. Like the youth are like, yeah, Y'all have high expectations. You always pressuring them. You always believe you're right. You are unaware, unconforming, and have false interest in their lives. Dang, they went in on y'all. They also say you're selfish, perfectionists. Oh, ooh, y'all got a holier than thou complex. Oh, God. I'm gonna have to keep all of those because that was really good. I want y'all to think about, see, all the adults in the room are like, dang, they went in. They didn't say anything positive, did they? They were like, were we supposed to? I just told them to tell me what you think about adults. So what does that tell you? That they didn't come up with very few positives. They're like, we're not getting no free food. So does that mean, I'll ask the youth, do you guys not have any positives about adults? There's some positives. So I want you guys, I need the adults in the room to think about this and to hear what they're saying. They do have some positives, but it sounds like this is how they see adults and how adults treat them the majority of time. I want you guys to think about this. All right? So let's look at what the adults think about youth. You guys are risk takers. You're lazy. Yeah, that's my daughter. I do youth development and I don't do it well in my own household. Disorganized, but you're driven. You feel entitled, tech savvy, politically charged, outspoken. You woke. Awesome. Anxious. fear of missing out, so you got to know everything. Sensitive, Peter Pan complex, that's why you're always childlike, you're always playing, you always want to have fun. Service-oriented but naive, you're disconnected, you stress, but you're smart and you're leaders. You're innovative, witty, overwhelmed, and it's underlined. Busy, dismissed, overexposed, susceptible, self-conscious, sophisticated, impressionable, and full of potential. Adults have more positives about you guys. Look, the youth are like, but we still stand by what we say. Why do you guys think I had you go through this type of exercise? Yes. Right. It's an opportunity for you to see how youth see adults through their eyes and how adults see youth through their eyes. Everybody get that? So it may have been things that were said that none of us like. There may have been things that were said that you're like, yeah, that's kind of true. But this is as a group of how all the youth feel and how the adults feel in the room. So when we think about this, we need to think about our language in terms of adultism. So I'm talking to the adults. And I know the adults are sitting here going, I can't believe they didn't come up with nothing positive to say. But this is the thing. I do this exercise at least 5 to 6 times a year. The youth always have more negatives than positives. Always. Part of it is because of adultism. We have adultism in our language that we use. Children should be seen, not heard. How many people have heard that? Act your age. Don't speak unless you're spoken to. How many people at breakfast before you even walked in here that you had to have a conversation with your youth and tell them what to do? Look, and the bad part is I got a few people who are honest and raised their hand, right? There's adultism in school. When a teacher yells at a student, they are controlling the classroom, right? And we have teachers that yell at their students. But when a student yells at a teacher, it creates an unsafe learning environment, and they get the resource officer to come and get them. So I want you guys to think about that. Adultism in youth work. We use professional language which restricts understanding. In communities, we have media bias against youth. So I start here talking about issues because they're things you need to consider. The only way we can change adultism is to begin to think about power and how power becomes important. So we need to ask the question, how can you support youth to amplify their power without imposing your own opinions and values? And then finally, what tools can I provide you to foster their voice in decision making? So power. Power is the ability to cause or prevent an action. Most of the time as adults, we try to use power over. Power over is when we use our authority, we use our control, we dominate over other people to get what we want. We use that to cause or prevent an action, right? If I want my daughter sometimes to clean up her room and she just turned 17 on Friday, ooh, child, that's a hard one. But there are times I have to step in and I use my power over her to say either you clean your room or you're not going nowhere, right? Everybody adult in this room has used power over. There's another way. We can use power with. Power with is collective action and comes from being united. We can use power together to try to prevent or cause an action. And then power within. We can build power within individuals to increase their sense of confidence, their ability to have control, self-esteem, because they gain awareness of their own abilities. So power over, power with, and power within. But first I'm going to talk about power with. We need to think about who gives power to whom. As adults, we don't like giving up our power. Let's be honest. As adults, none of us want to give up power. And even when we say we're giving up power, we know we try to keep some of it, right? We manipulate situations to keep our power. Even young people in this room, you don't like giving up power either. You got your room, you got your toys, your books, your clothes, and so-and-so cousin comes in the room and wants to play with your stuff. Y'all try to keep your power. Don't touch my stuff. Mama, why are you in my room? I need privacy. Power, because that's your domain. But what does it mean for an adult to share power with a young person? What does it mean to give up power or to share power? What does it mean for a young person to gain power, right? Organizations and partnerships like youth adult partnerships struggle with the issue of power. This is not easy. And I'm not going to stand up here and tell you there is a magic formula, because there's not. None of this is easy. It is all about sorting out issues around power and figuring out what is your role when you have to share your power with young people, when you have to let go of adultism. So adults always usually have more power than youth, especially administratively and financially. None of the youth in this room, I'm going to assume, are millionaires. Any of y'all millionaires? None of the youth are millionaires. So they don't have financial power. Are any of you guys CEOs? Any youth? Exactly. So they don't have administrative power. So the adults in this room have more power. But when we think about that, if adults give up or share some power, the youth in this room have to be willing to step up. I'm talking to you guys now. If adults says you guys can make the decision, don't be sitting there just saying, you guys need to make the decision. They're trying to share power with you. But this is the thing. Youth most of the time are marginalized in decision-making processes. But youth also need to understand that adults can lack power too. They may be in an organization where they don't have the final say. They may be in an organization where there is no budget. So they may not always have power that you think they do have. Does everybody get that? The next thing to think about as adults is that a lot of times we think we need to give up all our power. That is not what youth adult partnership should be about. It should be about shared power. And that is the most common mistake, is that adults believe they need to give up power, which is why they get scared. We're not telling you to give up power. We are telling you to begin to share power. So the aim is shared power. All individuals can contribute based on their own strengths, as well as the things that they have to share equally. But using power comes with great responsibility. You can't use power without care, which means you need to treat young people and adults with love, respect, and fairness. You can't be manipulated, coerced, or seen as a threat. That's not sharing power. That is power where you're trying to have power over other individuals. A lot of times you may not realize it, and this is going to the adults, but power can be used in a form of abuse. So this is for all the adults to really think about this. There are times where we may manipulate, coerce, use as token, and we are emotionally abusing our youth. You need to take care with how you distribute that power. And sometimes we do it like If you don't do something for me, I'll withhold my affection. If you don't do this for me, you're not going to get approval. I don't like you anymore. And in this room right now, there are adults that are either thinking about things that they've done in the past, or you know someone on your staff, or you know someone that's a relative that uses their power as a form of abuse over young people. There are young people in this room right now that can think of situations where someone told them, if you don't do this for me, I won't love you anymore. I thought you respected me. I thought you wanted to be part of this program because you liked being and having me as your mentor. If you would do this for me, I'll still be your mentor. That is still a form of abuse. So you need to think about the language we use and the lasting effects it can have. So how do you share power in developmental relationships? There are 4 ways. Respect me. That is where you take me seriously and you treat me fairly from both sides. Include me. Include individuals in decisions that affect them. Collaborate with them. Work with me to solve problems and reach goals. And then let me lead. Take a step back as adults and create opportunities for them to take action. There are 10 ways that you can do that. You can let young people make decisions. We also, when you're able, offer choices to them. It doesn't have to be an either or. It doesn't have to be you do what I say. Allow them to think about different choices that are out there and not just give them instructions. Learn from young people, and when they tell you, sometimes you can be disrespectful. Instead of getting defensive, learn from it. What did I do that led to this situation? That also means for the young people in this room, we know sometimes you guys can get attitudes, let's be honest. Because there's sometimes I look at my child and I just want to like, oh, if you were my child, I'd strangle you. But see, I got a youth development, I got to learn. And so I learn from it. So you need to think about how you can respect as well. When you disagree, take time to understand the other person's point of view. Ask young people for input. Provide opportunities for them to lead. Build community and serving others as an emphasis in your programs. Give them a voice. And then finally, understand young people's point of view. So all of these are just tips that you can use. But this is the thing that matters. Anything you do requires intentionality. Intentionality means I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this to achieve a particular goal. So when you're thinking about decision-making and sharing power, you need to think about the quality and quantity of participation. So when you're developing your curriculum or you're developing your program, you need to have pathways that suggest developmental progression of rights, votes, responsibilities. So what does that mean? Maybe they're a member right now, but there's a pathway for leadership for them to become a president or the actual liaison to the president's office. You need to develop that. That's why you think about roles and responsibilities. You need to have meaningful pushes, the thinking of community, civic, and youth organization to define impact. You need to have participation that requires careful definition to avoid imposing adult ideas. And then when we talk about all, it suggests a level of organizing that challenges the depth and breadth of what you're doing. So you create pathways for meaningful participation for all youth. And we could talk about this in more depth, but you know I'll start running out of time, so I'm gonna keep going. But I want you to think about how do you set up your program to actually have these levels of impacts that are intentional. And I can talk afterwards on everything from how to build a contract between youth and adults on how to share power. We can talk about roles. So when you think about it this way. How are decisions currently made in your organization? If I want to intentionally put in a pathway. So there are lots of ways that youth and adults can share power in decision making. There are decisions in settings where there are more youth than adults, and there are decisions where there are more adults than youth. So if we're looking at things like fundraising and the budgeting, the majority of people in this room as adults don't want to show youth the organizational budget. I'll take it even further. How many adults in this room have seen the organizational budget? Let's start there. You have seen your organization's budget. How many of you have never seen the organizational budget? Okay. So I need the youth to think and look around. That means if you've never seen the budget as an adult, they lack power. They don't have as much power as you think. So there are things they can't even do. So what is the pathway to put a roles in place, not only for youth, but also to advocate for your youth staff member who's part of the organization, so that they can be part of the decision making as well? So if you haven't seen the budget, how do you begin to put in a way to, one, develop skills so that youth understand what a budget is and how it operates? To two, to talk about how does that budget and what could be spent and what can't be spent based on your grants and contracts. And then allow them to have a portion of that budget that they control. Because once they understand the budget and how to control it, even if it's just a budget of $400, $200, it gives them power. It gives them understanding. And now that they know how to do their budget, how do we then go possibly to start training them? And maybe it's an actual pathway to a career where they begin shadowing the budget person in your office. And they get to work on the bigger budget. And then all of a sudden, you give them contacts to an accountant. And they internship with that accountant. They're like, I do not want to be an accountant, but maybe an entrepreneur, how's that? And then you take them even further and you start showing them careers in college that deal with money. So you guys see how I just made that intentional. That's not something that every organization in this room is going to do, but I want you to begin thinking about how do we include them in different areas of decision making. Another good area where most adults control is communications and outreach. And it's interesting that adults control that, but the youth are the ones that are more not only tech savvy, but also know everything in social media. But adults won't allow them to have any type of control in that area. That is another prime area where we can think about having youth be part of the decision making and actually having them work in that particular area. So how do we put together intentional decision making? 3 ways: through capacity, motivation, and opportunity. Capacity is about developing knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behaviors so they can participate. You can't get mad that they keep talking during meetings and your meeting goes for an hour and no decisions were made if you haven't taught them Robert's Rules of Order. If there is not an agenda and you haven't shown them how to put an agenda together. Because let's be honest, as adults, how many times do we go to meetings and we sit there and like, why do we even have this meeting? We get mad at other adults that don't know the process. How can we change it for the youth that we're working with? So capacity, motivation. They have to have a motivation and willingness to be there. If your program is boring and you mad that people are dropping out, they've fallen asleep, they don't want to be there, don't blame the youth. What are you doing to provide what we call an environment that is engaging for them? And when they told you this wasn't a project that they wanted to do, but you said, but this is what we're going to do anyway, don't get mad that nobody shows up. So we have to make sure that motivation matches what we're doing in terms of our projects and our actions and our programming. And then finally, opportunity. Do they have a situation where youth can participate effectively? Are we truly meeting the needs and their interests? They told you they really want to get involved in environmental stewardship. They want to save the environment. But because as an adult, that's not your skill area, you told them no. They told you they wanted an opportunity, so that means your programming isn't matching their needs. You decide because your friend is really good at chess, you're going to start a chess program, and nobody shows up. And you keep putting this chess program on the books. Don't be mad when the youth told you in a survey they didn't want to do chess. They wanted to do cooking. But because it's your friend, and everybody's looking at me because you guys know how we do this, you want to hook somebody up. Look at, he looking like, why you use hookup? I'm just saying. You want to hook your friend up. So y'all decide to do chess, and nobody wants to do chess. And then you manipulate and coerce your youth to participate. So for we to have intentional decision making, you need to have capacity, motivation, and opportunity. We are not going to read the scenarios. You will get a copy of all of this. It is part of a handout. But I'm going to go through one scenario. And I need Ms. Rebecca. Can you check my time? How much time do I have left? 15? Okay. 1 minute. Somebody tell me. 1 minute, thank you. See, somebody said 15. I'm like, I should be up in time by now. So scenario, your team always makes an effort to reach out to youth and young adults to be part of the planning process and to attend the events. Even though you put a significant amount of effort into recruiting young people, very few young people show up for the events, and not many attend more than 1 or 2 of the planning meetings. You suspect that the meetings and events are missing some element that would attract young people. So how do you overcome this challenge? One of the handouts I'm providing you gives you a list of about 10 different scenarios like this that you should go through with your youth to talk about how you can build capacity, motivation, and opportunity to overcome some of these challenges. And so I want to make sure you guys are working together with all of your young people. I'm going to leave you. See, we were going to do some karaoke. We're going to have to do karaoke. I'll come back at a break and we'll do some karaoke. Yes? Y'all can make them do the chicken dance. Come on. So I'm going to leave it here for questions that you guys may have. The biggest thing I want to leave you with are things around power. Adultism is about power. The only way for you to have a youth-adult partnership, and I know Ms. PBJ agrees with this, is you got to let go of some of this power. You got to share power. You have to share power. It can't always be about you. If you allow them to share power, they will shine, and they will also make sure that you shine in your job. All right? So I'm going to leave you with this last thing. I need you to put a heart on your paper on your table. Everybody draw a heart. Everybody draw a heart. And I'm going to leave this here. I want you to list one thing that you feel about this session. This is a way I usually try to end sessions, with some type of reflection. This is a great reflection if you guys do meetings or events with youth, is to think about what did they learn today? How do you feel right now? And then what action step will you take? You can give youth different cards like a brain or a head, a heart, and some feet, and they share that as they go outside the room. These are just different techniques that you can use to work with young people or even other adults in meetings. What did you learn? How do you feel? And what action steps will you take today? So I'm going to leave you guys. If there are no questions, I'd like to thank you very much for talking about each other and rumbling, and I'll be around for a little while longer. They told me it was time for break. No questions? Great. Okay. David, I'll be here.
Remind me. All right, guys, we got about 15 minutes to our next session, which is here. So y'all can stay put. Y'all need to go to the restroom, get some refreshments. But the next session is here. It starts at 10 o'clock. There is more coffee over there.
Test.
There you go. I hear you're starting this whole thing on?
Yes.
Make sure you turn the microphone on before you start.
Okay.
Otherwise the live stream and the recording don't hear it.
Nice, thanks. Isn't it?
Testing. Okay. Hello. So we're about to start right now. Our next session is going to be led by our friends at Texas Standing Tall. Texas Standing Tall is a statewide leader in evidence-based environmental community change strategies. One of these strategies that they would like to detail for you today is community needs assessments. This training focuses on ways to collect data and assess your community so you can identify data-driven, evidence-based strategies that will help address underage substance use issues in your community. Youth and adult participants will learn the basic components of a needs assessment, identify data sources, and link data to goals and planning. Many of you may already have done one for your group, and others may just be starting up a group. We hope that this session can spark discussions and provide best practices for you to implement with your groups. With that in mind, we have Aurelia and Sophia here to introduce our speakers. Thank you. Alicia Rosas is the Youth Engagement Specialist at Texas Standing Tall on various statewide substance use prevention teams over the past 8 years.
Georgianne Crowell is the Director of Community Outreach and Education for Texas Standing Tall, TST. She comes to TST with experience in research and supporting specialty projects for large research academy institutions, as well as assisting with public health community. She holds a BS in biology from Texas State University and a master's in public health from the University of Rochester's Medical Center in New York. In her spare time, Georgianne loves to cook, watch movies, and spend time with husband, friends, and family.
Awesome. What an amazing introduction. I'm just like, it's me, Alicia. A lot of you guys know who I am. I am Alicia Roses. I started working at Texans Standing Tall a year ago, but I got involved in the work that I do today because I started off as a youth, working in youth programs in my community, and then at the state level and then nationally as well. So all of you youth that are in the audience, I'm super excited to have y'all here because it was opportunities like this that helped me get to where I am today. So very excited to see such a big turnout of youth and adults here. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about data-driven solutions for community-level issues, which sounds kind of complicated, but we are going to present it in a way that is very engaging, and hopefully you will leave with a plan of action to do data collection in your community and be engaged in assessing the needs of your community. So how many of you guys know what a community needs assessment is? Just kind of getting a gauge for knowledge level. Perfect. Awesome. So a few of you guys already know what it is that we're going to be talking about. So why is it important that we look at data in the community? Why is it important that we care about data? It's important that we care about data for various different reasons. Who can give me an example of a way that data is important and why you care about it? Yeah, that's perfect. He said that looking at data in your community can help you understand the people in your community and the issues that they care about, things that are actually going on in your community right now. What is another good reason to care about data? It helps you measure change. That's a really good one, for sure. What else? Any more ways, reasons? Yes. It helps you predict outcomes. That's perfect. We're going to talk a little bit about setting goals towards the end of the presentation, and that'll be really helpful to keep in mind. I'll take one more. Why should we care about data? What are some ways that data can be helpful?
I just visited with an expert on advocacy, and he and I were talking about youth advocacy. And because of adultism, he said, youth have a voice, but the truth is right now they have to be better prepared.
Right.
Adults, when they walk in, so when they have those facts at hand, data behind what they're asking for, it's going to get them taken seriously.
Yes, that's perfect. So she said that she was talking with somebody about youth advocacy, and a way that young people can be really effective advocates is by being extremely prepared and utilizing data to back up their case statement, which is awesome. We're actually going to be talking about case statements this afternoon as well. So very excited that you guys all kind of have a general knowledge of why we should care about data. There are two different types of data. I'll go into the details about those in just a second. Quantitative and qualitative data. That's typically how we categorize data. Quantitative data is very number-based, and qualitative data is not so much number-based, but all data is really important. Like someone had mentioned earlier, we can track trends, see outcomes if they're being achieved, and things like that. Does anybody have any questions about why data is important? Nope, perfect. I forgot I had a clicker. So the first type of data that I'm going to talk about is going to be quantitative data. So quantitative data, like I mentioned earlier, if you think of the word quantitative, you think of the word like quantity, so an amount of something. This is data that can be counted and measured. So a lot of times this data answers questions like how many or how much of this, how often does this occur? And this data can often be verified and used conveniently to evaluate different techniques. So for example, you might have various quantities of something like, we were talking about budget earlier, like how much did this training supply cost? Or, things like how much is it to, purchase hotel rooms for youth to attend a conference and things like that. So that would be quantitative data. Or you might look at it in your community. For example, you might say how many youth between the ages of 10 and 24 are currently attending school, so public school, higher education, etc. So those are ways that you can have quantitative data. Quantitative data usually is collected in like surveys, polls, questionnaires. How many of you guys have ever taken a survey, a poll, a questionnaire, etc.? Probably everybody. Most of you guys probably have. And a lot of times those questionnaires will have things on them such as like rank this on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you understood it at the beginning, how much you understand at the end, etc. There are other types of, quantitative data. We could go through a whole list, but I won't bore you with that. How many of you guys have ever collected data about something, either have created a questionnaire? Yes, can you give me an example of something that you created that was quantitative data? So she said that she was in a bio class and they collected data about their projects for bio. That is a great example of quantitative data. Anybody else have a good example of quantitative data that you've collected before? Yes.
The different things that people wanted to, we had to look at the different things that people wanted to buy. So we gave different things that you could get, and then how much different people wanted those different things.
Yeah, that's a great example as well. So you gave people choices, and then they selected, and then we had a ratio of how many selected a certain item. Those are awesome examples of quantitative data. Now we're going to talk a little bit about qualitative data. So again, it says it kind of in the name, qualitative, quality. We think about this as descriptions, or it's describing a characteristic, or things that maybe can't be put into numbers. So how many of you guys have ever taken a survey and the survey said something like, describe something that you learned from this presentation, or something like that? So that would be an example of qualitative data. You're not saying, I learned 3 facts. You're saying, these are the facts that I learned, and I learned them and they were important, and I feel this way, and you guys should bring this presenter back, or I wish that we would have had more of this. Those are examples of qualitative data. Qualitative data helps us develop a deeper understanding of how people may perceive their social realities, and in consequence, the way that you interact with the social world. So for example, like I had mentioned, open-ended questionnaires. How many of you guys, I did this when I was in high school as well. We had to journal every morning, a paragraph. I had my English class, was my first class of the day, and we would have to write, we had a prompt, and we had to write a little journal entry, and then it showed our progression in writing throughout this, the entire semester based off of where we started on the first day of class and then to the end, and it helped us we called them mind joggers, and we were able to do that. But that was an example of qualitative data that we were able to collect about ourselves. This could also be things like if you observed something occur. So she mentioned biology. In your biology class, you probably collected samples and measurements, but you might have also said, I observed that the color of this thing changed from this to this. That would be an example of qualitative data. You might also do things like, how many of you guys have ever participated in a focus group? A few of you guys, they're really cool. Focus groups are kind of an example of qualitative data as well. I know that they have a lot of commercials on TV that show these are real people, not actors. They show them in a focus group setting, and they're being asked questions about something that they prefer, what they like about it, things like that. So there is structure, but the responses that people are giving are more quality-based than they are number-based. Does anybody have any questions about qualitative data? Nope, perfect. So when we think about collecting data, we kind of want to have an understanding of what data we're looking to collect. So I have some examples up here. Obviously, there is a ton of other examples of places that you can collect data. We have up here Health and Human Services Commission. We work in underage alcohol use prevention, so a lot of data we get comes from the Texas Department of Transportation and the Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission and the Department of Public Safety. What are some places that you guys may have collected data from before that you may have used as a source of data? Department of Labor, that's a good one. A census, that's a really good one. World Health Organization. What was that? School campus data, that's a really great example as well. That one's very local, very community-based. A lot of times you can find state-level data and local community data. Like I said, we work in substance use prevention, so the state of Texas is divided up into 11 regions, and each region has what they call a prevention resource center, and that prevention resource center typically will collect substance use data and other demographic data in the community that you live in, and it'll be able to be used by people. I think most of them do it every year, but it always kind of depends on what data that they're collecting. In Texas, we also have something called the Texas School Survey. Have you guys heard of that? I believe, doesn't A&M do that one? Yes. Yeah, so Texas School Survey, it has a bunch of data about youth in schools. It has both quantitative and qualitative questions on it as well. Any other data sources that you guys have used before? How many of you guys have heard of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention? Yeah, probably. What about, I'm trying to think of some other really big ones. I kind of had all of my examples on here. But yes, so essentially all of these different resources you can use to collect data about things that are happening in your community. You can use them as a baseline, so where the information comes from initially, and also to see maybe where there are gaps in data, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. Because if you see that data is being collected in your community or not being collected in your community about something that you want to know more about, these resources are really great because they can either provide you with information or let you know that there is not information being collected about that specific type of data that you want to know. Anybody have any questions about where to find data? Nope. Awesome. Perfect.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. Good morning. Thanks. So my name's Georgianne, and I'm not Hannah. If anyone looked in the program and was wondering, where's this Hannah girl? Why isn't she on stage? And why is this other person there? She's a member of our Youth Leadership Council, and unfortunately she had to cancel last minute. Things happen, and so that's why I'm here with Alicia today. The good news is we've got another youth leader named Nick, who's also with the VCOT group today, and he'll be presenting this afternoon. So you only have to deal with me this morning. So now that Alicia has kind of walked through the different components of community assessment, I actually want to talk about data. I want to talk about the community assessment piece. So why do we want to actually do a community assessment? Do you have any idea, any shout outs on why that would be important? Good starting point. Yes, that's a great way to put it, right? Because if you think about it, you know, the things we see all day long in our communities, in our world, there seems to be so many issues. And it's like, it can be overwhelming. I mean, it's like, where do you start, right? So that's a good example of why you would want to do community assessment, is to kind of focus your efforts. And when we talk about community assessments, we aren't just talking about prevalence rates or how many youth are using a certain substance. You know, those are really important components of your data collection, but you also want to understand where it's happening in your community. So narrowing it down to a specific area, you know, a zip code, a neighborhood, a school, and also look at the populations it's impacting the most, because that's going to help you find the best strategy to address this issue. So we're going to do a quick activity, and I'm coming down in the audience amongst y'all to be available for any questions. So we're going to go through a series of questions, and I'd like you to partner up with your neighbor, and you don't have to know them, or you can know them, it's fine. And if there's an odd number of folks at your table, you can do a group of 3, that's not a big deal. But we're going to give you about a minute per question, so it's kind of fast-paced, and I want you to write down your answer to every question we ask, because at the end, I'm going to be asking for volunteers to give their answers that they came up with. And don't worry about it being a right answer or a wrong answer. That's what we're here today, is about learning. So, first question. What is the greatest substance abuse problem? And it can be in your community, at your school. And if there are multiple, just pick one. Let's stick with that. So you got about a minute. groups of 2, or you all can do 1 4. It's all right. I'm not gonna be super hard. All right, got about 15 more seconds to wrap up your answer in your group. And you want to have 1 substance picked. All right, so everyone should have 1 substance identified. Next question. Where is the problem taking place? Try and be specific. The more specific you are, the easier it will be to address the problem.
Yes. Really smart. At the Dove Springs Park.
Georgianne.
Did you say Regina?
It's close. I could be Regina. Whatever works for you guys.
It did somehow come out like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also like Southern, so I feel like my words sometimes just all merge together, you know what I mean? So. Alrighty, about 10 more seconds. Where is this problem taking place? All right, next question. What group of people is the problem that you identified in the first question affecting the most? It can be multiple groups of people. And when I say group of people, that could mean a lot of things. It could mean youth, or adults, or males, females, and minority groups.
Yes.
Again, trying to be specific, it'll help you determine how to address this issue.
It was somebody in your sister.
How y'all doing back here? You good? Okay.
So I think there's like different, the problem looks completely different.
All right, about 15 more seconds.
Are you really for
Alrighty. Let's move on to last question. So, why is this happening? I know that's kind of a vague question. We'll talk more about that next, but why is it happening? Why do you think this happens in your community or school? Good? You're like, nailed it.
We just put all one group. So.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm not gonna like enforce it.
You guys have separated.
You have to leave now. You can call. Well, maybe I'll call on you guys. We'll see.
Almost everyone, like 95%. It's not. I just think like
All right, about 15 more seconds. All right, go ahead and wrap up this last answer. And I'm going to ask for some volunteers to go through every answer they had for these past 4 questions. Any brave souls out there embracing their inner data nerd want to volunteer? Oh, we got someone over here. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I said nicotine.
Nicotine is a problem.
Yes.
Substance, sorry. Okay.
In schools mostly, and it affects a lot of teenagers, and they mostly do it to be cool, and it's easily accessible.
Awesome. That's a great example. Round of applause for that example. Thank you. All right, next.
A lot of different places, we said it happens a lot of different places, like everywhere.
When you say, can you say like
Yeah,
an
more
example of everywhere?
So we said like college campuses is like really prevalent. We said it affects more specifically people who are like older than like teenage years, because that's when it becomes more of like societally just like acceptable, I guess. Low income people, I think a lot of times people have like less access to other things. We talked about mental health and escapism, like using like alcohol as an escape from like reality. We talked about emotional suppression, social pressures and like social norms, like it's everybody's drinking, so I should be drinking too. It's really accessible some places, whereas other healthier, better options are not accessible. And then we said some people can use it as like self-medication too.
Wow, that was a lot of good ground that you covered. Thank you. Round of applause for that answer. All right, one more over here. It's all right. Okay. I saw her first, and then we'll go to you guys next, okay?
Okay, so we're here from a foster care organization. So the girls listed weed, cocaine, huffing, and alcohol, and it is taking place in the school, and they have observed it in their community parks. It has they also share parents and other youth, and they feel that they do it because people want to relax, or they think that it is something good.
Wow, all right. Good job, you guys. Thank you. Right over here.
Juuling and sometimes like weed in the Juul pods, and it's happening like in the school bathrooms in the stalls, and it's mainly 7th and 8th graders and some 6th graders, and they do it because they think it's cool, and then they get addicted.
All right, thank you guys. The stalls of a bathroom, that's about as specific as you can get, right, for the location? All right, you guys?
Well, we talked about opioids in our community.
Okay.
Especially like on the college campuses, especially between the 18 and 25-year-olds. And it's mainly because it's very accessible. And it's easy to get. Especially we start with a prescription medication, so easy to get, and then after a while they start going to bigger things.
Right. Like, do you have to only use your own prescription drugs? You're supposed to, right? You're supposed to, right? But there's also other people's prescription drugs that you might have access to in your house or your family member's house. So that's about access, right? All right, this group.
Well, ours is underage drinking, a little different from theirs. So it's available in social settings in our community, like 83% is social access, and it's impacting obviously kids 13 to 20, and it's a rite of passage. It's a socially accepted, parental disapproval is really low when it comes to underage drinking, and so it's quite a challenge. And our community is very diverse, both socioeconomic and it impacts everybody equally.
All right, thank you. Let's give a round of applause for all these examples. All right, thank you all so much for sharing. Yeah, it's interesting. I think sometimes it's surprising when we think about the biggest substance being used in our communities and what you observe. Who in here can tell me what's the number one used substance amongst youth in the state of Texas?
Alcohol.
It's alcohol, y'all. Does that surprise anybody? Not really? Okay. Well, it's important when you talk about a community assessment and looking at the issue you're wanting to focus on because, again, like I said, there's a lot of things that are going on, and some groups had multiple issues that they brought up, which is good to keep track of. But when you're trying to assess the problem in your community and then select a strategy to address that problem, you got to kind of focus on one. So as we continue on with this portion of the presentation, I want your group to focus on the one that either you identified, or if you had multiple, maybe pick one to keep in mind as we discuss what to do next. So that question, why is it happening? That's a big question, right? And there were a lot of good examples that folks gave me in here, and it can be very confusing because it's like, well, there's so many. But you have to think about all of them in order to see what's truly happening in your community. So intervening variables is just a fancy word for what's happening in our community that's allowing this to occur, allowing this problem to exist. It can also be called a causal factor. So it's causing something to happen. And every one of these intervening variables, they are all linked to an evidence-based strategy that will then have an actual effect on the problem that's occurring. What does evidence-based mean? There's data that proves that it works. Why do you think we'd want to start with something that's been proven to work? It'll be more effective, most likely, right? Cost effective. It's reliable, right? You're not just trying something and hope that it works out. All right, so each one of these up here, I want everyone to look at them and think for a second with your group. Again, with the substance that you picked and where it's happening in your community, and who it's affecting, why is it happening? Some of y'all gave me some that were almost, for a word, one of these examples. But make sure you think about the other ones as well. So some said access. They talked about having access to the substance. That's an example. But there could be others. So take a minute to discuss with your group and make sure you've thought about all of these different factors and how they can be causing the issue in your community. And then we'll discuss.
They do.
Sorry, so yeah, all of a sudden it just triggered me.
Just because they were like,
all of a sudden there's like 10 people doing it. Yeah.
Alrighty, start wrapping up your answers. So let's hear from a group who hasn't shared yet. Anyone want to volunteer who hasn't shared yet? What intervening variables do you believe are causing the issue in your community? I'll start calling on people. Okay, over here, hold on.
So in our community, we think that the main reason is opportunity and lack of consequences. You know, there don't seem to be consequences at home. Consequences at school are limited, mostly because there are no resources for school administration to manage that, and so the problem just continues.
Awesome. So what category does that fall underneath?
Enforcement, yeah.
Okay, enforcement's one. Where else could it fall? Okay, where else? Low perceived risk, right? If the adults in the community don't think it's a problem, how are the youth supposed to think it's a problem, right? Okay, let's take one more example. Identifying intervening variables. Who wants to go? I'll just close my eyes and I'll start pointing. Oh, let's go to this group up here. Hey, y'all. All right, what are some intervening variables that y'all selected? Who wants to be the mic holder? I think you just volunteered yourself.
I'm good.
All right. I'll give up.
What was the scenario?
Which intervening variables did y'all pick that are causing
Just
your
like
problem?
in life?
Like the social
No,
norms.
having to do with a substance issue in your
Yeah.
community.
Get the sugar, coffee, phone, food.
What was y'all's substance?
The phone?
Okay. Here, let's walk this through together. Okay, so if you don't feel clear, just pick one, maybe not specific to your community. What do you think is a problem in the world? Phone? Okay. Too much time, no, too much screen time, right? So what's contributing to that? Why do you think people like to be on their phones so much? Which one of these things up here might be something that would contribute to that? Social norms, yes. High five. All right. So sometimes it helps to work backwards. If you're not really sure where to start, look at the intervening variables and think each one through, and you'll be able to start identifying those contributing factors that are allowing the issue to occur, that are making it acceptable. All right. Thank you all, everyone, for participating. I really appreciate it. So now that we know about what's happening and who it's happening to and where it's happening and why it's happening, what can we actually do to make an impact and to create change in our community? And that's why from the beginning, I encouraged you to be very specific with your answers, because as you move along with your community assessment and then picking a strategy to use to address the issue, it can get a little bit confusing if you have too many areas you're trying to tackle all at once. So when thinking about how to address an issue, there's really two primary ways to prevent substance use. The first way is through individual strategies. So you focus on the individual person. And this is something like classroom education that gives the skills and knowledge to individuals in order to live healthy lifestyles. And this kind of education is so important, right? We gotta teach everyone how to take care of themselves. It's really important. But if you teach them all the skills, you give them all the knowledge on how to be healthy, and then you let them back out into a community that doesn't uphold those same healthy priorities, that have a structure that actually supports good decision making, all those skills and knowledge, they go out the window, right? Because you can't actually use your skills in an environment that doesn't support it. Environmental strategies, on the other hand, focus on the larger scale. So a whole community, a whole city, a whole state, a whole school. It can mean many things, but it's more than just one person it's focusing on. And that broad-based focus, that community approach to addressing an issue, that's what creates large impact, right? Because you're addressing an issue and you're impacting a lot of people all at one time. So environmental prevention, it shifts the focus from just the individual to the environment itself. So I know that you probably can read all of those little tiny words up there, but the main thing is just to look at the triangle itself, the pyramid. This pyramid demonstrates all the different levels of health interventions that you can do in your community. The ones at the very top, those are that individual one-on-one approach that I mentioned before. So like counseling, that's one person at a time. Those categories at the bottom, the orange and the red, those are the environmental, broad, community approaches to addressing health issues in your community. Those are the ones that are going to have the biggest impact. Now, ideally, communities would have something at every single one of these levels implemented in their community, because that would ultimately create the biggest and greatest amount of health impact. But if you're going to start somewhere, start with the broad-based focus. Think about ways to reach all the people in your community with a strategy.
Thank you, Georgianne, for walking us through those very intense but also extremely important components of a community assessment. And it's so important that we look at these different things because we're here at the Community Leadership Academy, and we've heard speakers yesterday and today, this morning, talking about the importance of young people in creating this positive change in communities. So it's only fitting, obviously, that we talk about the role of youth in not only collecting data, but conducting a needs assessment and selecting strategies to be implemented in the community. So I work with a group of young people across the entire state of Texas called the Texas Standing Tall's Youth Leadership Council, and our young people learn about the process of conducting a community needs assessment. They walk through these research effective strategies, and then they select a strategy that they want to implement in their community, and they work collectively in the community to create that change that will happen. And it's important that we recognize that there are young people here who are passionate about making a change in their community. And there are adults here too who remember when you were a young person or work with young people or currently still want to make change in your community. It's never too late to make a lasting change in your community. How many of you guys are passionate about creating change in your community to better your community? Hopefully everybody. Even if your community is small, I came from a really, really tiny town. I live in Austin now, which is so different than coming from Ira, Texas. There were 200 kids in my school, K through 12. My graduating class was 13 students, and I thought, man, when am I ever going to make a change in my community? Because people don't know that there are issues that are here. People don't know how to make a change, and I kind of felt really alone. And I attended a conference with a bunch of other young people who are passionate about making change in their communities. And it really sparked a fire in me to continue to do that work as I went through the rest of high school. I went to college. I went to Texas Tech University. I studied community, family, and addiction sciences. I now get to work with young leaders who make change in their communities. And I get to come and talk to you guys about why it's so important that you know this process, because you do have the power to make change in your communities. I think it's really cool to look at roles that young people can play in creating this meaningful impact, in collecting data and doing a community needs assessment. So a few of you guys have said that you have taken surveys before. How many of you guys have ever created a survey, like created your own survey? That is one awesome way that you can already start using that skill that you have to create a survey to collect data in your community. You could collect it over anything that you're passionate about. You can collect it over a substance use issue. You can collect it about people using their phones in class and things like that. Whatever data it is that's important to you, you can create surveys, and there are resources. You have adults that came here with you who maybe brought you here, but probably encouraged you to come. And you were very excited to come here and learn about ways that you can make change, and that's one way that you can make a lasting impact. I'm trying to think of some other really cool things that youth in my community have done. We work with a lot of young people, and we'll talk about strategies in just a second as well, but we work with a lot of young people who go out into their community and they survey. Someone had mentioned like outlet density as one of the reasons why like underage drinking and tobacco use was a big issue in the community. We have youth that go out in the community and survey how many alcohol and tobacco outlets exist within a certain radius of their schools and places that they hang out and things like that. So that's another great way that young people can get involved in collecting data. And then also in the process of identifying what should be done about the problem that you see in your community. Does anybody have any questions about data collection? It's a very great starting point to creating change in your community. Like someone had mentioned earlier, it's a great start because if you don't know what needs to be addressed in your community, you don't know what to collect data about. Another great strategy that young people can get involved in, yes? Yeah, that's a great idea. So using social media to collect data as well. If you've ever used like an Instagram poll or a Snapchat poll, or I learned about Instagram polls at an event in March, and I was like, whoa, I never use my Instagram story. That's what Snapchat is for. Things have their own tasks, and now I realize that every social media app has like a story feature, and most of those story features have polls that you can use. And so that is a great example of how you can collect data over basically anything. Whether it's your followers, I think they can do it anonymously as well. You can collect the data anonymously on the social media polls. So that is a great example. Who's all heard of compliance checks? Or maybe stings, minor stings, sting operations? No? Okay. A few of you guys have. So one way that people can get involved, young people especially, can get involved in collecting data about the community is by helping with compliance checks. So compliance checks are where an individual is trained by an officer, a police officer, on what to do. They go into an outlet or a retailer. We work in underage drinking prevention, so it could be a restaurant or an alcohol retailer. And they're trained on how to attempt to purchase an alcoholic beverage with an undercover officer, like there with them, kind of like, obviously not standing next to them like a parent, but they're in the environment. And then the young person is either asked by the retailer, do you have an ID? I see your ID so I can check your date of birth, et to check to see that retailers are being compliant with the policies that exist in our communities to help create healthy and safer people in our communities. So we talked a little earlier about like laws and policies that exist in terms of like age restrictions on things. So for alcohol, it's age 21. Tobacco, starting September 1st in Texas, will be age 21 as well. Congratulations, everybody who worked really hard on that. So compliance checks are going to be a great starting point this next year. Once retailers have to switch over to being compliant with new policies, it'll be a great opportunity for young people to get involved. I can't go do a minor sting. Like, I'm 24. I'm old, and so I can't go do a minor sting because it would be legal for somebody to sell alcohol or tobacco to me. Not that I'm going to go purchase it, but I cannot go and check the compliance because it would be invalid. Young people have that awesome opportunity to help collect data about outlets' compliance with laws and policies. And it's a great opportunity as well to partner with people in your community that conduct these compliance checks. So I went and did a tobacco compliance check when I was in high school. It was really cool, kind of scary, didn't know what to do. They trained me on how to do what I needed to do. We went to some retailers. I got a bag of chips, would go up to the counter and be like, hey, can I have some Marlboro menthols? And they were like, no, we need to see your ID. And I was like, oh, I don't have it. And they were like, cool, we can't sell this to you. But then I'd get my bag of chips and leave. And then we'd be like, cool, that retailer was compliant. They checked to make sure I had my ID. And the undercover officer is always there with you as well to make sure that you're safe, because some people would get very angry that I, a young person, was trying to purchase tobacco products and didn't you know all this stuff that it would do to you? And I was like, yes, I actually work in tobacco prevention. That's why I'm doing these stings. But it was always very interesting. So you're always safe, but you're also well prepared. So it's a great opportunity for you to gain some new knowledge and skills and help with collecting data about compliance in your community. Does anybody have questions about compliance checks? Cool. The last, but definitely not least, strategy, and this kind of can be a strategy itself, but it can also help amplify other strategies that you're working on. So how many of you guys are working on some type of project or community effort in the community that you're in? Whether you're with a school program, you focus on a specific thing that you do, maybe you provide curriculum, education, maybe you're working on community policy change, things like that. So a lot of you guys already have existing strategies that you're working on. A great way to get the word out about your strategy is by using media advocacy. So media advocacy is a really effective tool in sharing what's going on with your strategy or sharing something that you're passionate about. So maybe you aren't working on an existing strategy right now, but you are very passionate about providing information about a specific thing that is going on in your school or community. Maybe you guys are hosting an event and you want to get the word out about the event where you're going to share information. Maybe you are looking for people to partner with in your efforts. Maybe you are, calling out to somebody who makes legislative decisions in your community, and you're saying, hey, we really appreciate that this person is designing laws and policies that are protecting young people. So media advocacy is a great tool to do that. I'm trying to think if I missed anything on that. Essentially, you guys as media advocates, like I've done this as well, and I worked with a lot of young people this year to do this. Texas was in its legislative session. We, attended meetings at the Capitol with lawmakers, but our youth also attended meetings in their local areas with their representatives and senators. And they were trained on important talking points. They were able to set a goal of something that they wanted to achieve during that meeting and then leave behind some really great information. Someone mentioned earlier about data and how it's important to have that as like a backing behind you so that whenever you're making a case for something that you're passionate about, you actually have the knowledge and resources to say, this is a problem, I'm passionate about it, this is what shows it's a problem, this is the data that shows that the solution will be effective at making change. So data can tie into all of these strategies, and these strategies are great opportunities for you to make change in your community. So I wanted to touch on this very briefly because it can get really intense, but not only do we have strategies that are researched effective, but we have models that are researched effective that help people create change in their communities. And one of those models is called a logic model. Who's ever heard of logic models before? A few people. A lot of young people may not have. I learned about this in undergrad and it like blew my mind. I loved it. So a logic model essentially says you have something that you're inputting into this model. So inputs are program investments, what's invested, what exists in your community that is going to be invested in creating change. What are the things that you're going to do based off of those program investments that are going to talk about that specific thing to fulfill your mission? So maybe your strategy is something like, I'll give a good example that a few of you guys know about, would be like Tobacco 21 and getting policy passed. So inputs would be what's invested. Maybe you have youth advocates that are invested into this program. Maybe it's data that's invested. Maybe it's community organizations that know information or can provide resources to get young people to their lawmakers. And then you have the output. So what does the program do with these inputs, people, data, to create the outcome? So the outputs are what the program is doing, activities. Maybe you're going up to the Capitol and talking to lawmakers. Maybe you are looking at policy and how it can better be changed. And then outcomes are the things that happen after the outputs occur. So you completed activities. This is what we are showing has occurred short term, medium term, and long term. This is, again, another form of data collection. Someone said it earlier, it helps us understand what the outputs are of the programs that we're implementing. This is exactly what Logic Model is talking about. And last but not least, and I gave you guys these handouts and we'll do a short activity before we end today, but creating goals is another really awesome strategy to start making change in your community based off of data that you either want to get or data that you do have, programs and activities that already exist or programs and activities that you wish that exist, and then outcomes that you'd like to see occur. So we're going to be talking about SMART goal setting. I know that you guys have the paper already because I wanted to make sure we had enough papers. But SMART is an acronym. I used to work at Texas Tech University as an academic coach, and I did this a lot with undergraduate students to set goals academically. You can use this strategy to set goals for literally anything. S stands for specific. A goal needs to be specific. Again, you guys have the handouts, and so this information is on that handout that I gave you guys. So what is it specifically that you want to achieve? It has to be measurable, so there has to be a way to measure progress and success. And if you use cool models like the Logic Model, you might have expected outcomes, so how are you going to make sure that that outcome actually occurs? It has to be an attainable goal. So is it realistically going to be achieved? Sometimes goals are very, very, very large. And then when we get to T, where it's time bound, is it going to be realistically achieved in the time that you are assuming it will be achieved? So A is attainable. It means, is it relevant, or no, can it be realistically achieved? Sorry, and then I skipped ahead. Relevant, so is it relevant to your organization's mission and purpose? Is this something that you should be working on because it's going to be meaningful, or is this something just for fun? You can do things for fun, obviously, but also we want to be setting goals that have a purpose behind them. And then we also want the goal to be time bound. So when would you like this activity to occur by? Or when would you like to start collecting data to see if results are occurring? Things like that. So everybody has a SMART goal sheet on in front of you, hopefully. If you don't, let us know. We'll come get them to you. If you need one, raise your hand. That's a good idea. Perfect. So with your handout that you have, you've got a couple of example goals that are at the bottom of the handout page. So I want you guys to take a minute. You can do it in your group, at your table, whatever you would like. But look at those 3 goals that are at the bottom. They're pretty simple. They do not follow the SMART method. So I'd like you to take a minute and, using the description of SMART goals, create a new goal for each of those 3 examples at the bottom that will kind of help you understand SMART goal setting. Does that make sense? Yes? We'll be walking around as well and helping out. You guys have about, I'll give you guys like 7 minutes. At least do one. Ideally, you'll do more than one. Y'all remember what SMART stands for? Specific, setting a specific goal. It needs to be measurable. How are you going to see that you have achieved success? It needs to be attainable, something you can actually do, realistic / relevant. Is this something that we even want to achieve? And then it needs to be time bound, so by when? Y'all have about 5 more minutes. Try to get one SMART goal written down based off of those 3 examples at the bottom of your paper. I'm walking around, I'm looking at what y'all are doing. Y'all let me know if you need any help.
Wrap up your answers. Take the next 10 seconds to finish up your last thought.
Three minutes, everybody. You got 3 minutes to finish writing your goal.
Alicia, I just told them to wrap up. Like I said, 10 seconds.
Okay.
Because we only have till 11:15.
Yes.
So.
But this is like the end.
Yeah, but then she's gonna do like sharing.
Yeah. All right, guys, as you're finishing up writing down your goal, Georgianne has got a mic on her. I've got a mic with me. We're going to take some examples of SMART goals that you guys have set, and we're going to make sure that they are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Raise your hand if you have an example of your SMART goal that you'd like to give completed.
Hey guys, how's it going over here? Can I hear an example of a SMART goal?
So we chose the first goal, which was we want to get more press. So we put it more specific. We want to get more attention in the press by having more articles written about us, sharing our community involvement. That way we can measure it. And we want to have as many goals as possible within a year, with articles as possible within a year. So we give ourselves a time frame on that too.
I like it. Round of applause for this group.
Anybody else want to share over here? I've got some people over here.
Oh, I interpreted the hand raise, so I'm going to go with that.
Okay. So we had a goal to host 2 virtual town hall meetings addressing social hosting for this year.
Awesome. That is a great, very specific, very time-bound goal. Perfect.
Speaking of social hosting, if you guys want to chat with me, maybe during lunchtime.
We do that.
I work with all the communities in Texas on social hosting, so I'd love to chat with y'all later. All right, this group over here said that they couldn't wait to share their example. Go for it.
Why me? For number 3, by the end of the year, we'll have a convention for young people to express the awareness and the dangers of underage drinking.
Dang, so y'all gonna hold a whole event? Yes. All right. Can I come?
Yes.
Sweet. Thank y'all. I'm always available.
We'll take 2 more examples. Does anybody else want to give their example of their SMART goal?
You guys have one over here? You want to just go for it, see what happens?
Yes, I will do that. Okay, they're abandoning ship. Let's do this. The number of incidences, we want the number of incidences of juuling to decrease at Friendswood Junior High within the year.
Decrease by how much?
By 30%.
And how will you know if you've attained that?
By the number of incidences reported to the police and school officials.
All right, sounds like a good goal to me.
And I think we had one right here for this group.
So instead of saying we want to get more press, we said reach out to 10 media outlets this over the course of the next month and try to be featured in 3 articles in the same time period.
Awesome. That is a super specific and time-bound goal. Give them a round of applause as well. You guys can see how all of these strategies that we told you guys about, and a lot of the stuff you guys have done before, I can tell by the way that you're writing the goals. You're like, oh, I want to do this specific type of press, or we want to do this specific type of substance. All of these things are things you guys can take back into your communities, with your organizations, with young people that you work with, and use these strategies to do this kind of brainstorming. We did it for, 15 minutes today, and you guys came up with some really awesome goals. Imagine going back and having, a 1-hour meeting to develop a bunch of goals that you'd like to accomplish, and setting up yourself and your organization for success in achieving these goals. I want to kind of end with, you guys have the power to create change in your communities. We're going to talk to you guys later this afternoon as well about making an ask to create community change. And so you guys will have an opportunity to practice a little bit more of the skills that we have to provide to you guys. But I think y'all have done an amazing job. So give yourselves a round of applause for setting awesome goals. And you guys essentially have kind of created a mini, data collection plan for what it is that you might want to accomplish when you go back to your community. You've identified an issue that you see occurring, who it's impacting, why it's impacting them in this specific way, and now you guys kind of have a strategy for how to create that kind of lasting change that will change those issues that are occurring in your community. Does anybody have any questions for either myself or Georgianne about anything we presented? Nope. Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much. We'll be here all day. And I'm going to turn it back over to David. Thank you.
All right, guys, it's time for lunch. We are not eating here. Our 2 volunteers will lead you. You remember we had the buses last night? There's a ballroom around there. That's where we're going. That is where lunch is going to be set up. It's already set up right now. So if we all can get up, follow our 2 volunteers. They will lead you straight over there. Also, be thinking about the Wednesday activity, guys. Remember I talked to you all about the Wednesday activity, how we're going to give you all some time to talk about what you've learned, what you want to share with the group. Think about that. Use lunch to do that, guys. Thank y'all.